Thanks for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast. Today, we're brought to you by Metro Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram at Chicopee. Be sure to stop by their state-of-the-art dealership next to BJ's and Big Y on Memorial Drive, or check out metrojeep.com and drive away in your new Metro Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram today. If you like what you hear, be sure to follow the show. Hit us up with a big fat review if you can on whatever platform you're listening to. There's a new episode every single week, and I hate to think that you'd miss out on any of the ones that are coming up or any of the ones that you might have already missed. Either way, enjoy, and thanks for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.
It's Baxie's Musical Podcast.
In the late 1980s and throughout much of the 90s, there was a sudden burst of exceptionally talented women who were finding commercial success in music, particularly in what was being called college radio or indie rock or alternative or whatever the hell you want to call it. Most of those artists just prefer to call it music because labeling stuff is kind of stupid, and most of those artists weren't making music simply because they were women. They were making music because they were great at it, and more importantly, they all had something to say. So let's forget about the labels for a moment, and let's look about who we're talking about. The Breeders, L7, Sleater Kinney, Throwing Muses, Belly, Liz Phair, Alanis Morissette, Tracy Bonham, Hole, PJ Harvey. It's a substantial list, a list that also includes my guest today, Juliana Hatfield. In 1986, Juliana, along with Frida Love and John Strom, formed the Blake Babies while they were all students at the Berklee School of Music in Boston. The band released 4 albums over the next several years until they broke up in 1992. From there, Juliana briefly joined Evan Dando and the Lemonheads, playing bass on their breakthrough album, It's a Shame About Ray. That same year, she released her first solo album, Hey Babe, which included performances from Evan Dando, but also John Wesley Harding and Mike Watt from the Minutemen. And while that album was a critical success, Juliana wouldn't have her first commercial breakthrough until the following year when she formed the Juliana Hatfield 3 and released the 1993 album, Become What You Are. That album cranked out 2 hit singles, including My Sister and Spin the Bottle. In 1995, she went solo again for the album Only Everything, which saw another hit in Universal Heartbeat. In total, she's released 19 solo albums and has enjoyed collaborations with people like Paul Westerberg from The Replacements, Aimee Mann from Till Tuesday, Exene Cervenka and John Doe of X, Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles, and many others. In 2018, Juliana began releasing a series of records spotlighting the music of some of her favorite artists, the first of which was Juliana Hatfield Sings Olivia Newton-John. The following year, she released Juliana Hatfield Sings The Police. And late last year, she released Juliana Hatfield Sings ELO. There were also a couple of exceptional solo albums tossed in there as well, but all of these records were very well received, especially amongst some of her most devoted fans. In 2008, she published her autobiography, When I Grow Up, a memoir. And to be perfectly frank with you, it's possibly one of the most honest and emotionally revealing music autobiographies that I've read in years. The Juliana Hatfield 3 are back on the road this year with Soul Asylum. She'll also be making a detour stop at the Drake in Amherst on November 2nd, and also at the Sinclair Theater at Cambridge on November 3rd. This is my conversation with the great Juliana Hatfield on Baxie's Musical Podcast.
Hey, hello.
Hey,
Bax.
how are you?
Bax, I don't want to do video if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't have to do video.
I'm just like, I think and I speak better without video. Video has always made me uncomfortable.
Is it because you're looking at yourself, or is it because
I
because
don't know what it is. It's just like the camera thing. I don't know. I feel like I'm being watched. I don't know. My soul is being stolen.
I understand. Well, you know what? You'd only be watched by me, and that's. I mean, I can understand why that could freak anybody out, but yeah, I totally respect it if it's.
It's nothing personal. It's like I have this problem with I can only use like the fewest senses I have to use at the same time, the better for me.
Understood. Understood.
Okay. Thank you for accommodating me.
Hey, you know, I'm happy to do it. I first of all, I'm so excited to talk to you. I've been reading the book, When I Grow Up. I know you wrote that a long time ago, but
Yeah.
I'm like 3/4 done with it.
Wow.
And I know it's been out for like 16 years, but I've read through a lot of these kinds of books, and some are great, and some are absolutely painful, like Swan's Way kind of painful. I mean,
Oh, it's
just
that, yeah.
And I totally agree with you about that book. It is one of the most boring freaking books that's ever been written. But I thought this book was like one of the most honest and sincere efforts that I've read in a long time. Like you actually get, as a reader, a better understanding of who you might be as a person rather than just a superficial list of achievements. And as I'm reading, I'm starting to feel like, well, I want to hear what's been going on for like the last 16 years. So let's start from day one.
All right. Okay. So what year did the book come out? Well, but actually, I am contemplating. I'm about to go on this long for me tour with Soul Asylum, and I'm contemplating updating a tour diary. Like I'm planning on trying to take copious notes every day at the end of every day, and maybe I can sort of like try it again and tell and show people where I'm actually at now.
I think that'd be really interesting. It's been a long time since I think people have had a chance to see, well, where are you at in your life, all these years
Right.
later. Because I mean the book I thought was very refreshing in the sense that, you're not writing bullshit like, well, let me tell you how I joined forces with rock and roll's Evan Dando. You're not doing that. I
Yeah,
mean,
and I think I barely even mentioned Evan. I think
barely,
I
but
because I sort of wanted to stay away from that. I didn't want to. I mean, well, for other reasons, but yeah, I didn't want it to be what anyone expected it to be. To be just focusing on really, it's really focusing on my own emotional problems, and I just have this weird compulsion to be so honest in my work, maybe in ways that I have trouble communicating in real life. As you can see, I can't turn the camera on because I have trouble with that. So I feel like I just put it all in the work and, music or writing. It's like I'm compelled to be brutally honest.
and I think that's good because, by doing it that way, I think it gives somebody, a look into something that they all can relate to.
Yeah,
Insecurities, self-doubt, there's internal
yeah.
conversations that we all have with ourselves. And yet, in spite of all of that, the one thing that remains a constant for you has been your music and how important that has been for your entire life to be able to express yourself musically. Has that changed at all, or has time kind of softened that for you?
I think my own feelings about and relationship toward my own music have become even stronger just recently. I mean, I was very conflicted for many years about making music. I felt like it was a curse that I couldn't do anything else, but I couldn't stop doing it, but I was so frustrated by it, by many aspects of it, by touring was bumming me out, and the reaction, the misconceptions toward me, just a lot of problems. I was always complaining about my job, but only lately, I'm working on a new album, and I've started to feel like I'm coming to terms with it finally. Like this is actually my wonderful, beautiful gift for myself. It's kept me relatively sane most of the time, and it's something to live for when
Yeah.
I feel like I have nothing else. And it's just more important to me than ever. And it has nothing really to do with charts or anything like that. It's about an expression and a communication, and I just feel very much more blessed than ever, and not as frustrated.
You and I are almost exactly the same age, and we grew up about 30 some odd miles apart from each other, south of Boston.
Sorry, where are you from?
Well, right now I'm in Springfield, but I grew up in Rehoboth, which is near Taunton,
Oh,
Attleboro.
yeah.
Yeah, not
Yep.
because you lived in, was it Duxbury?
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's about 30, 35 miles away. I mean, you and I
Yeah.
could very easily have been in a very unsatisfying high school relationship with each other.
Like our teams could have played your teams.
It's possible.
Really.
I don't know if Duxbury played Dighton Rehoboth because I was not the athletic type. But but what's really interesting about all of that is that, to me, is like you and I kind of seem to travel a similar track in discovering music, back in the 80s and, throughout high school and heading into college. And we seem to kind of gravitate towards the same kind of music too, which I thought was really interesting. For example, there's a whole part in your book about the replacements and the importance of Paul Westerberg's music in
Yeah.
your life. And I totally related to everything you were saying about it because I think a lot of people of our generation of those years look at that music and of him specifically as being almost like the like the Bob Dylan of our age. Tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about the importance of Paul Westerberg and the Replacements for you.
Well, I think I expressed it pretty well in the book, and it's a lot. There's a lot of words in that chapter, but um, what I'm trying to say is I'm probably not going to explain it very well here right now. But it was just his voice and his mode of expression felt. I just felt such a strong affinity, like almost like a spiritual connection to his musical persona, which meant it did not mean that I wanted to go and stalk him and that we were needed to be married. It wasn't about that. It was about I feel like everyone who makes music has a musical persona which is separate from the normal personality and the everyday, how people have a personality, but the musical persona is the best part of people, I think. And so it's almost like the God part, you know, the musical persona. I mean, unless you're like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of someone who's like a frat bro singer. That maybe that's not like the God part of that person. But like, I don't want to demean anyone.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's very well. But yeah, I feel like there's definitely God, whatever your conception of God is, if you have one, I feel like it shows up in people's musical voices. So yeah, what he would, I guess Paul Westerberg was kind of like a god to me in that way, and I kind of worshipped the sound of his voice and his guitar playing and the way he delivered it. And for me, it was just like I felt so alone in Duxbury a lot of the time, and no one in that town knew of the Replacements except for myself. I was the only one, and I mean that I knew of.
Right.
And so it was hard for me to, when you're that age, when you're a teenager, you want to bond with your friends over music, and I was bonding oh, with the Police, with certain friends, but Replacements I was on my own, and it was like I needed it at that time. It was just I felt that his expression was so close to what I was feeling, and his way of singing, the roughness,
Hmm.
the combination of like tenderness and scoffing at things, like it was so complicated, like I was so complicated, and it wasn't like some easily explainable music. And I was just very drawn to it, and it was very important to me to realize that, oh, there are people like me out there.
To me, there was always like a combination of beauty and recklessness
Yeah,
about it.
exactly. Yeah, that's what it was. It
Yeah.
was like it's so alive, but in every way, like so honest in that you can feel, maybe like a bird will bring you to tears, the beauty of a bird song. But then you're driving and someone cuts you off and you're just like swearing, giving want to give the finger and want to like rip someone's head off. It's like the combination of those things.
So the reason I'm asking about this because obviously this came out well after the book was written. So in 2016 you had the opportunity to record an album with him as the I Don't Cares. Yeah, and considering how you have felt about him and about his music over the course of your lifetime, this had to be a thrill. And to have this be one of the final recordings that he would ever record, 8 years ago. I mean, I'd be pinching myself every day. What was that experience like for you? And how did that even happen?
Well, we had met a long time before that. We had more of a history and a friendship. So at that point, when we were working on the I Don't Cares record, I had known him for maybe like 20 years by then,
Mm.
or 15, a long time. Because back in the 90s, I think it was, my memory is so bad, I have to put that out there as a disclaimer, but I think it was when he put out his solo album, 14 songs. I think that was it, when he went on tour and he invited me to open for him on that tour,
Wow.
before we had met. And so that was when my head exploded. Really. It was like, holy shit. Like my idol, my first and biggest idol is personally inviting me to open for him on tour. And I couldn't believe it. Like that's when I was pinching myself. And so, but then right before we were supposed to meet up in Denver for the first show together, he canceled because he threw his back out, I think,
Right.
and he had to cancel. So for me, it was like the best and then the worst of all time, because I couldn't, like, I was invited. There's something in my music he was drawn to, and or I don't know, maybe it was a marketing thing, but I doubt it because he doesn't think like that. But then he couldn't do it, so we never got to meet then. So heartbreak. Then we did meet. We met soon after that, and we became friends. And so we had this ongoing interaction happening. So by the time we started working on the I Don't Cares, we knew each other really well. But still, there were moments we were in his basement recording, and he'd be recording something, and I'd look over and I'd say to myself, my teenage self head would have exploded
Yeah.
to know that someday I would be in Paul's basement recording music with him.
I would think that recording a song like Have to Pee with Paul Westerberg would be like the highlight of your life. I mean, it's not exactly Gary's Got a Boner, but it's pretty damn close.
Yeah, it's a little more clever than Gary's Got a Boner, but yeah, I mean, but you get to know, like with anyone, you get to know the person. There's his musical persona, which is still untouchable, but then there's Paul the person. So you learn to separate the two. Like we annoyed each other and got on each other's nerves and pushed each other's buttons. But yes, I still revere his musical persona.
I want to talk about some of your more recent stuff here for a bit because well, every band starts off playing covers. You've released over the last couple of years 3 albums covering the music of Olivia Newton-John, The Police, and then last November you released Juliana Hatfield Sings ELO. Each one of these artists holds a certain importance to you. What made you want to tackle these specific artists individually?
Well, with Olivia, I think that around the time I was thinking about her music, it became publicly known that her recurring cancer had come back. She had beat it twice, I think, over the years, and it came back. And then I saw she was going on tour,
Hmm.
and I had never seen her before, so never seen her in concert before somehow. So I decided I have to go see her, and the closest place to Boston that she was playing was outside of Pittsburgh. So a friend of mine met up in Pittsburgh, and we went to the show, and it was great, and I was so happy that I had seen it. And around then was when I started working on the album, or maybe I had already started it. But I think that there was a sense that, oh, time is so precious, and I gotta show people how much I love her and her music, and I have to do this in tribute to her because her music and her voice was so important to me when I was growing up. She was like a light in the darkness, and she was like a beautiful, wonderful escape for me all through my life, and it continued. I can listen to her now, and I still feel the same
Hmm.
feelings of pleasure and happiness.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's bittersweet because she's not here anymore. But so the album came out, and we were giving I think it was well, we were giving a portion of every time someone bought one of the albums, we gave a portion, maybe $1, I think, to her cancer charity
Hmm.
in Australia. So we were able to, give back to that, that was a really important part of her life, because she was doing research and she was helping people out with their treatments and things. And she acknowledged it in my album. She was very gracious about it. And so again, it was like dream come true. I didn't meet her, but being able to just sort of interact indirectly and to just be able to give something to her and to show people how much she meant to me. Her music meant to me.
I love the fact that you chose to do the music of ELO too. I mean, I think like Jeff Lynne is like one of the most underrated songwriters of all time.
Right.
Unapologetically, I think Out of the Blue is still one of my all-time favorite guilty pleasure albums.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that when you're going through, his catalog, I mean, there's a lot of songs there. You picked some of the later songs, but also some more obscure ones like Bluebird is Dead, for example. I loved what you did with that. I thought that sounded so great. And not a lot of people know that song. It's off the album on the third day, but you did such a fantastic job with it. How did you sort through and actually all 3 projects, I mean, it's the same question. How did you decide which songs you wanted to take on?
Well, I can say that with Olivia, I was focusing on the 70s material, which was when I was 70s in the very early 80s, which would be the physical album, which was when I was what I mostly listened to. Like I kind of was a little too young to get into her really early stuff. And then when the 80s started to really kick in, I have a lot of problem with a lot of the production of albums in the 80s, like popular albums, even including the replacements 80s albums. It's like, I mean, some of them, I mean, specifically one album in particular, I couldn't listen to some of that stuff because of the 80s production. And that was true with some of Olivia's 80s material also. So with her, it was more like really focusing on the era I was mostly listening to. Then with ELO, I was not as personally connected to the people to Jeff Lynne. He was an enigma to me. I didn't really even know his name until I was, older. I just they were more like a band out here on the radio and I would love it but I didn't know anything about them. So with ELO I wanted to, I had this kind of new appreciation of Jeff Lynne when I got older and all of his amazing production of other people and his voice, his
Yeah.
writing. I was trying to choose with ELO. It was like I need to try to pick something from the early era and then pick some of the hits from the 70s because there are a billion of them. I just wanted to pick some. And then I wanted to go later into the albums that people didn't know, like the Zoom album. Not as many people knew
Right.
because all the way through, the songwriting's great.
Well, I mean, you mentioned that Olivia Newton-John at least acknowledged in some way that your record. Did you get any acknowledgement from Sting or Jeff Lynne for that matter, or was Olivia the only one?
Nothing, nothing that I know of from Jeff Lynne, but there was kind of a funny indirect acknowledgement from Sting because my old friend Josh Freese, who played some drums on my album Only Everything, he was touring as Sting's drummer for a number of years.
Mm.
He's in the Foo Fighters now. He's just this incredible drummer, gifted drummer, and really, really excellent guy. Down to earth, funny. So he was on tour with Sting for a while, and I was in the UK. This was when that Police album was coming out. My Police album was coming out, and Josh, we get in touch with one another once in a while. I was talking to him, and he mentioned that and he said that one night Sting came into the dressing room and he had his phone. He's like, "Hey, Josh, have you heard of Juliana Hatfield? If evidently she has an album of Police songs coming out." And Josh said, "Yeah, I know Juliana. She's great." So that was all I got. I don't know if Sting ever listened to the album, but for me it was just super cool that he spoke my name.
He doesn't get to speak everybody's name, so you gotta
Yeah.
think that's pretty awesome. But
Yes.
I would think that of the three records you're talking about, Olivia Newton-John, The Police, and ELO, the most challenging probably had to be The Police. I mean, because instrumentally they're just so identifiable. Like just Stuart Copeland's drumming alone, is like the backbone of a lot of that music. Did you find them to be harder to do than the other two, or did it not really
No.
matter?
No, the Police, that was the least difficult album of all three for me.
Really?
Number one, because I just decided early on I'm just gonna completely forget about the Stuart Copeland angle and not try in any way to match any or attempt to recreate anything that he had done because he's a unique drummer and no one can play like him.
Right.
Or if anyone tries to play like him, it's just gonna sound like an imitation. So I threw that out. I'm like, we're just gonna start over. I'm gonna strip it way down. That's the one part of the album I'm not quite sure I nailed though, the drums. I think maybe I stripped it back too much. On some songs I used like a drum machine that was playing the same beat through the whole song, I think.
But if you're focused on the song themselves,
Yeah.
then that really shouldn't matter whether it sounded like a particular person or not. In all three of
Yeah.
these cases, you're focused specifically on the song.
But with that band in particular, each of the three elements, the drums, guitar, bass, and vocals, it's each is so important to the sound of that band. So I knew that I was going to be pissing off some Police fans who were the Stuart Copeland super fans,
Right.
by
Right.
because he wasn't there. Like some people are just going to be immediately annoyed because Stuart Copeland's not on the song. But after, aside from the drum issue, it was so much easier for me than the Olivia or the ELO songs because I felt such I've always felt such an ease singing along to Sting, and I was in a cover band in high school, and we did a lot of Police songs, and I was just so familiar with all of those songs and with singing them, and his range is like very easy for me to, and his phrasing, it's like second nature to me to sing those songs. So that was pretty smooth for me to do that.
So the pattern for you has been to release these record of covers, then followed by a solo record. I think the last one was Blood in 2021, which I really thought was very, very good, especially Mouthful of Blood. I thought it was just a great, great song. You mentioned earlier that you're already working on another solo album. How far into that are you, and how soon do you expect to even be at the point you can release it?
I might be halfway through. It's taking a long time. I'm going at a much slower pace than I think I ever have before, but I think it's good that I'm doing that. It's a different way for me to work, and I'm doing all my stuff at home, and then I've been working with a drummer in another location. The guy who played on the ELO record, Chris Anzalone, playing some drums on this new album. So I don't know. I guess it'll be out in 2025. That's all I. That's the plan.
I mean, you've had a number of hits over the years. My Sister, Universal Heartbeat, You Spin the Bottle. You know, in the book, you talk pretty openly about feeling at the time that you were past your commercial prime, which was actually a very disarming thing to hear, especially in a book that was written 16 years ago. But at the time, you also talked about very specific reasons for this, and many of those reasons were completely out of your hands and out of your control. And what's interesting now is that the mechanism of actually making hits has changed dramatically since even the late 1990s, and
Yeah.
it's changed even more so today. As someone who's now got 19 solo albums under their belt and all kinds of other collaborations as well. I mean, do you even think about hits, or are you just thinking about just the art of the music itself?
I dream about hits. I fantasize about a hit just magically becoming a hit on its own without any effort on my part, without any effort or planning or marketing on my part. That would be just a wonderful thing to have a song somehow flutter out into the world like a bird and magically and make everyone enraptured with it, and make everyone happy and make everyone discover it on all together, like on its own. But that's probably not going to happen. I mean, it could happen, some kind of freak occurrence. But what do people say? F. Scott Fitzgerald. There are no second acts. Wait, no, did he say that? There are no second acts in American life. I'm getting everything wrong, but you know, maybe I had my one chance, but at a hit.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, for me, it's okay because that's not what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming at expression of feelings and ideas, and I'm aiming for, musical beauty
Yeah.
and power and honesty.
And I think the other thing that a lot of artists keep in mind, I actually think it's probably pretty healthy, is you are always going to have your most loyal fans follow you no matter what, and
Yeah.
and those are the people that maybe you play to the most. But ultimately, it's really what's inside of you that you're playing to, and
Yeah.
what makes you happy, and how an audience responds to that is never under the artist's control. It is what it
Yeah.
is. It goes out there, and whatever happens, however it lands, that's where it goes. I mean, it sounds like
Yeah.
that's kind of how you see it too.
I do, yeah. I mean, now more than ever, I feel I feel that it's a kind of a sense of purity in what I'm doing more than ever now because I'm very isolated in the record. I'm maybe more isolated than ever in the recording of this album.
Hmm.
I mean, the recording process is more solitary than it has ever been, and I think it's gonna ultimately make for some really interesting music. Not that it's a departure in stylistically, it's not a huge departure, but I think just in the way that I'm expressing things, I think it's gonna be really good. I mean, like I have no outside opinions on it. I have no perspective. I'm really like in the weeds with this thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it's gonna be, how anyone's gonna embrace it, or reject it. But I don't care, because I mean, of course I want people to feel it and to understand it and feel something, have feelings for it, but and they see themselves in it. But for me, it's just really important for me to express what I'm feeling
Yeah.
right now.
Back in May, I interviewed Tracy Bonham, who
Hmm.
went to Berkeley like you did,
Yeah.
and we talked quite a bit about this wild explosion of commercially successful female artists back in the '90s. And as soon as it started, it vanished when record companies started to focus on the next shiny thing in the room. Did you feel like, as she did, that there may have been some level of misogynistic or undercurrent operating with record companies back then, and have things changed since then? I mean, are we still operating under the same kind of pervasive mentalities that were there then, or is it something totally different?
Well, I think there's a basic truth that misogyny exists and always has from the beginning of the sexes. But I feel like when we were all getting signed in the 90s, the early 90s, there were people working in the record business who were pretty pretty feminist. Like the guy in my band, in my first band, John Strom, he was more of a feminist than I was in the beginning. I didn't even know what it meant, and
Right.
he actually taught me some stuff. And he was playing in the band with two women who were just learning their instruments, me and Frida, the drummer. And he was an accomplished guitar player, and he was just always very like, just do what you're doing. You're great. You don't have to be the greatest players. You're great as you are. Just let's just keep doing it. And he would defend us from the misogynists. He was appalled at some of the stuff that we saw. So yes, there were, but people. Someone at my first record company, independent record company, was kind of a pig.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, that went on. And but when I was signed to Atlantic, there were good people there, and there were, yes, but yes, misogyny all over the place. I probably would have had bigger hits, more hits, if I had been willing to sit on the laps of certain people who had the power to play my music or not.
Yeah.
But my manager, Gary Smith, would never stand for any of that. He was a very righteous guy, and he would defend me and protect me, and he kept on doing that every step of the way. And so maybe that hurt my career. No, being having integrity, maybe that hurt my career.
Is
Having bodily integrity.
Yeah, well, but it also seems as though at a certain point in time, the record industry, for whatever reason, seemed to kind of turn their back on all these female artists, which is insane to me. It's not like Alanis Morissette sold 30 million records simply because she was a woman. She sold 30 million records because it was a good record, and you worked hard to make that happen for her. And then at some
Right.
point, they just stopped doing that. And all of these substantial female artists, I think, really suffered as a result of that. And Tracy's a perfectly good example of that. Her second record was maybe even better than the first, and yet it just got ignored and pushed back for forever and ever because for whatever reason they decided they wanted to focus on something else.
Well, you know what happened with me? I mean, a whole lot of things happened, but I ended up making a third record for Atlantic that was never released.
Right.
So that's what, and then I asked them to let me go from the contract, and so that's what happened with me. It was two records, and then I was done. But a new president, there was a lot going on to make that happen. A new president came, the guy who signed me, Danny Goldberg, he left, and then this new guy came in, and they were more focused on Jewel, who was a new signing to Atlantic. And I knew Jewel came in. I'm like, oh, yep, there, I'm done here. I'm
Mhm.
done here. So I guess you could say that the sexism in that scenario is like they can't focus on two female artists at the same time. It's like Juliana or Jewel. What should we do? Um, Jewel. They focused on Jewel. And I get it, I got it and I get it. And I think that on the one hand, yes, women had to deal with this, like there can't people didn't know how to deal with too many at the same time, including radio programming. I think it's still happening. Like they, if where there is radio, it's like you hear about this happening on country radio. Like they can't play too many songs by female artists back to back. But I have to say that when Tracy and I were being, when our labels kind of gave up on us, I think labels were dropping lots of people, not just women.
Yeah.
There were a lot these like tons and tons of sign. Everyone was getting signed in the '90s, and then a lot of people were getting dropped after they had their moment. It's like, okay, next. It wasn't just women.
But it did seem very abrupt to me, especially since there were so many out all at once. I mean, they did a lot to, like the quote unquote hair metal bands when grunge came out. They totally turned their backs on a lot of those bands, and
Right.
and some didn't deserve to be dropped. I mean, some were still commercially viable in spite of how they were treated. I just think it's interesting, how quickly the tides tend to turn when there's a possibility
Yeah.
of making a buck.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's a little bit disheartening.
Yeah.
You think about, yeah, there's like no sense of loyalty over the long term, or there wasn't with the artists, unless you're lucky. You're one of the lucky lifers who's popular lifers.
You're going to be going on tour pretty soon, and it's the 30th anniversary of the Juliana Hatfield 3, I believe, and you're going to be coming to the Drake and Amherst on November 2nd, and the Sinclair in Cambridge the following night. In the book, you talk about these internal conversations you have as you're performing on stage, and what are those conversations like now? Do you still have them? Are they different than they were, say, 20, 30 years ago? How are things different today?
Really depends on the night. It's like I have good nights and not so good nights internally in my head. It's like the good nights are when it's flowing and I don't have the internal dialogue going on in my head, like you idiot. Oh God, get it together. When I'm just if I can just let go and be more confident and focused on the music and not but I do have the nights where I'm worrying about what other people are thinking, and when I get in my head and it's like, what does Simone Biles say? What do she get? I get the twisties sometimes. When I forget lyrics, and I think it's because I'm just like I get self conscious and I start worrying about messing up, and so then I mess up. I get the musical twisties, but I'm doing better. It's kind of ridiculous that I still have these problems after all this time, or maybe everyone has them, but I just talk about them publicly.
Well, I think everybody does have them. I think that's what kind of grounds us a little bit, is that we all have a certain level of insecurity. It's one of the reasons why so many people go on stage or
Yeah,
create art, or whatever it is. It fills a gap, and to have those conversations, I think if people were honest, I bet you 99% of anyone who performs has those same kind of conversations all the time.
I don't know. I don't think Taylor Swift has those conversations with herself. I think Taylor knows that she's the queen of the world. I'm doubtful that she has doubts about herself. On
I gotta believe there are times when Taylor Swift loses her car keys, and she says, "Oh,
Like,
Taylor, what
on
are you doing?"
stage,
She
on stage, I think she's all set. As a performer, she's got it together. I think
I
from
don't,
her perspective.
there have to be problems along the way. They're just, you can't do that many shows in a row. And
They're probably the little people's fault. Her problems are the little people screwing up. But I'm not trying to. I don't mean to put her down. Like
oh no, I don't think you are
good
at
for
all.
her. I don't know her music, but good for her for being the queen of the world. Better her than someone undeserving. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
But I'm just trying to say that I have all of my career, I have had confidence problems and crippling insecurities. It happens in the studio sometimes, happens on stage sometimes, and sometimes people don't know that I'm struggling with this stuff, but sometimes they do because I'm vocal about it. I'll talk about if I'm having a hard time on stage, I might say something about it because I feel like I have to explain myself to these people. But I'm getting better at dealing with it and I'm having more good nights, I think, than I
Good.
used to
Good.
on stage.
I'm glad to hear that. I think the people in Amherst on November 2nd will be glad to hear that too.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually played in Amherst proper before.
Really?
Northampton for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, that I know. But it'd be great to have you out here.
Oh wait, there's a chapter in my book about my depression, my horrible depression, and it happens at a gig at Amherst College. I remember
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
That's
believe
how cool it was.
right, and I believe there's there's a park bench you're sitting on, kind of like
Yeah.
ruminating about it. Yes, I remember that part.
I think I'm lying under a table in the dressing room crying.
Well,
Yeah.
I hope your experience next time in Western Mass is a little bit better than that.
Sure, it will be.
Juliana, it's a real pleasure to talk to you. I wish you best of luck, not only with the ELO record, but also with the next solo record coming up next year. And best of luck on the tour. It's a real joy to talk to you today.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. The Juliana Hatfield 3 are coming to the Drake in Amherst on November 2nd and at the Sinclair in Cambridge the following night. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like it, share it, review it, tell everybody you know about it. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for regular updates about upcoming guests. Thanks again to Metro, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee for their support, and thanks to you for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.